I'm Dr. Evelyn, a naturopathic doctor and traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, and I want to show you in this video how the system that we're trying to change or affect with moving more, eating less is a lot more complex, and how just two variables really are not enough to really address it. And I'm going to show you that by talking about a hormone that nobody ever talks about and how it actually regulates a lot of things, and now it's not insulin, and what you actually can do. I've recently been seeing a lot of women who are eating what they're told is healthy. They're making an effort. They're going to the gym a lot. Sometimes they're losing weight. A lot of the times they're not losing weight. Even if they are losing weight, they are many times fatigued. They're dealing with a lot of food noise. They're hungry all the time. They might be cold. The periods might be irregular or just really heavy or painful or have PMS. The mood is all over the place. And then they're told that they're not doing it hard enough, that they have to eat even less and work out even more, and they're stuck, right? So I see this quite a bit, and I wanted to make this video to sort of show why things are not so simple as eating less and moving more, and that you're not failing, even if they're told that you're failing or they don't have enough discipline or that you should just do it harder. What happens when you do this eat less, move more, is that you create an environment where you end up fighting your own biology. So when you restrict for, let's say, 5 days, and maybe on the weekend you end up eating more, breaking that calorie deficit, and then you feel bad about yourself, and then everyone's telling you that you don't have enough discipline, just do it harder. They don't understand that what you're doing is you're trying to fight your biology, your survival biology, which has gotten us here as humans for millennia. And it is unreasonable for you to be successful at fighting your survival biology. Now, this is not an excuse to say, oh, well, my survival biology is telling me to eat, so I can't do anything about it. No, it's not about that. It's about understanding how it works so you can actually pull the right levers instead of making things worse. And I'm going to show you that by talking about a hormone that nobody ever talks about. It is a hormone called, let's put it over here, leptin. Now, leptin is a hormone that is made in the fat cells, or primarily in the fat cells. And when it goes out into circulation, it acts both on the brain and it acts on your tissues, peripherally in your tissues as well. And it is one of the master hormones of the body, and it controls a lot of different things. For example, if you have a good amount of leptin and you're able to sort of respond to it, you are going to increase your thyroid production, right? So if you have hypothyroid or low thyroid, what happens is that your basal metabolic rate, so that's the energy that you use just to live every day, lowers, right? So you're using less energy, so that the calories out part of the equation goes down if you have low thyroid. You might get cold, you might gain weight, right? And that, again, is regulated by this other hormone, leptin. What else does it do? It lowers your hunger. So when you have enough leptin and you're sensitive to leptin, you should be satiated. Right? You should not have that food noise that you experience. It also was called it increases or regulates or modulates autophagy. Now, autophagy is just a fancy word for repair or recycling of old cells. So a lot of it happens at night or when you're fasting. And it's just like a normal process of cleanup. So again, leptin has a lot to do with that. So if you're not having enough or you're not sensitive to it, you may not feel as well rested or restore as well from things like working out 5 days a week. It also helps regulate blood glucose. So as part of this thing, it's not just insulin. Leptin regulates blood glucose as well. It actually affects insulin. So it makes you more sensitive to insulin. So again, so if you're calorie restricting and not thinking about the other aspects of your diet, and the leptin piece, and we're going to talk about how the leptin piece gets dysregulated, then that can worsen things by having blood glucose dysregulation. And when you have blood glucose dysregulation, yes, you have high blood glucose, which is not great, but a lot of people also get dips because after the meal, right? Like you eat some sugar, you get the blood sugar rise, you get insulin come in to help deal with that. And in some people, if that insulin starts to go too high to try and compensate for the amount of blood sugar that is coming in, it eventually after a few hours can dip. And if it goes below a certain point, that's when you get that typical hangry feeling, not hungry, hangry, where like there's a mood element to when you need to eat. That's usually a low blood sugar issue. And again, it's going to make cravings worse. It's going to make you want to eat more because low blood sugar is quite dangerous. So the body sees that as an emergency, and you now have to go eat something. So it's going to be hard for you to fight against that, and you might end up eating more than you wanted to. And it also allows for ovulation. Where is that? It actually allows for ovulation. So leptin communicates directly with the reproductive system, and it signals that there's abundance, that there's enough food to make a baby, that it's safe enough to make a baby. So it's not just about losing weight. It's all these other elements in your body that is regulated by leptin. And again, I only included a few that are relevant for sort of the hormonal, fertility, thyroid, weight loss goals. So this is a huge hormone that nobody talks about, nobody tests for, that regulates at a high level all these downstream things that everyone's having issues with. So I mentioned earlier that leptin is made in the fat cells. And you say, well, okay, so if someone has more fat cells, they should have more leptin. So what's the problem? Why is all this leptin not doing the things, all these things that you just mentioned? It should be kind of like a self-regulating mechanism. And that is technically true, except that in the modern world, we have what's called leptin resistance. Now, this is similar to insulin resistance, where you're making enough insulin, but your cells are not responding to it. So it's the same thing. A lot of people, especially a lot of overweight people, have actually high levels of leptin, but the brain and the tissues are not responding to it. So even though you have enough, even you have enough fat cells, you're not getting the signals to decrease hunger, increase thyroid, regulate ovulation, regulate blood sugar, and all that kind of stuff. So what are the things that actually causes insulin resistance? Well, number one is sympathetic activation. Now, this is a fight or flight, right? This is stress. This is a moment of stress. And this could be both mental, emotional, like your boss is yelling at you, toxic relationships, financial issues, right? All those things can activate the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight, the stress response. But physical stressors can also do it. So hitting the gym 5 days a week, calorie restricting too much, right? The body doesn't realize it. The body doesn't realize that you're intentionally trying to lose weight. It can perceive that as a famine coming. The overtraining is a stress. Exercise is a stress, so you have to make sure that you're recovering properly to get the benefits. But if your body's too stressed, or if you do it too often and you don't allow yourself to properly recover, now the body's wondering who's chasing me. Like, why are we still running, even though we're not recovered? There must be a danger in the environment, because otherwise, why would you be running if you're not fully recovered and rested and well fed? So those are stressors. That sympathetic tone can make you less sensitive to leptin, because leptin says, spend more energy, make babies. And when you're in danger, it's not a good time to make babies. It's not a good time to spend all your energy if a famine is coming. Elevated cortisol. Now, there's a normal cortisol curve that is completely normal, with high in the morning, low at night. But in this world, we have chronic cortisol elevation because of a lot of these stressors that we're exposed to. Again, mental, emotional, but also physical. Particularly when cortisol is up at night, that could be a really big problem, because leptin should be higher at night. That's when leptin is supposed to exert its action in the body, is at night. And if cortisol is up at night, that can be a problem. And that can be due to many reasons. Stress is one of them. Blood sugar dysregulation. So if you have a blood sugar dip, cortisol comes in to get the blood sugar back up. It could be a reason. And the biggest one is artificial lights, especially at night. Blue light, our regular LEDs, directly increase cortisol. That's the signal for our body to actually wake up and make cortisol by the sun. And now it's being replicated at night by all of our artificial lighting, and that will dampen the signal from leptin. Next, we have, you can see that, inflammation. So that's just, inflammation is a fancy term. I don't know if you can see that, but inflammation. Inflammation is a fancy term for immune system activation. So anytime that your immune system is active, that's an inflammatory response. Now, of course, there's healthy inflammatory responses, like when you get an infection, you want your immune system to activate, but we nowadays have chronic inflammation. This could be due to gut issues that our microbiome is not well regulated to decrease inflammatory or to protect us from not just pathogens, but other inflammatory things like certain proteins in our food that we can be reacting to. We're exposed to all kinds of pollution that cause an inflammatory response, autoimmune diseases because of maybe nutritional deficiencies. We're not able to properly mount a response. Low mitochondrial function. So the mitochondria is what makes our energy to use to then utilize for the immune response, because the immune response is very energy intensive. So if we do not have the energy to mount a proper acute immune response, we are going to have a harder time fighting anything or getting rid of anything, and is going to sort of slow things down, and it's going to be on at a lower grade for longer, and that's going to interfere with leptin production, or leptin, not leptin production, but leptin sensitivity. Elevated insulin. Now, this is not just like your normal insulin elevation after a meal. I'm saying like chronically elevated. So like if you're fasting and insulin is high, which is the sort of the first step into diabetes, so it's insulin resistance, then you get pre-diabetic, then diabetes. So if your insulin is chronically high, where leptin attaches in the brain actually competes with insulin. Insulin also signals in the same area, and there can be it can have an inhibitory effect because it can just block leptin's ability to signal. So again, elevated insulin, dysregulated blood glucose it's sort of a two-way issue, because you need leptin to regulate your blood sugar, but then if your blood sugar is dysregulated, it also affects how leptin is acting, and it's a vicious cycle. And last but definitely not least, artificial light. Now, we already talked about how artificial light can be a problem at night because of the cortisol issue, but a really big important piece is actually daytime natural lighting. So in the morning, especially when the sun rises and the color temperature changes from not having any blue to having some blue in the morning, we as humans are supposed to be outside. We're supposed to be in natural light, and it doesn't have to be sunny. It could be rainy anywhere in the world, any temperature, any climate. We're supposed to at least be outdoors to be in natural light. And that natural light, that natural change in the morning, what it does, it signals your brain that it's the beginning of a day. And we all have a master clock in our brain that synchronizes everything in our body. And that signal that the day has started starts sort of the cascade of telling the body what the situation is going to be, what the hormonal environment should be. And what it does, there's the region of the brain where leptin acts to do all these good things, increase thyroid, allow ovulation, decrease hunger, is sensitized by that lighting signal in the morning. So that lighting signal says, great, let's be ready for when leptin comes later. Let's get these neurons ready so that when leptin comes in at night, it can easily trigger all these good things. So when we don't get that, when instead we're indoors, which is, even with the lights on, it's much darker than being outside. Even worse if we are on screens or under like modern artificial lights, which are very, very blue. And yes, we need some blue, but it doesn't have any of the other spectrum to sort of give us the full signal. Then by the time nighttime comes and the leptin tries to act on our brain, then our brain is not sensitive to it. So what does that mean for you? So it's like, okay, there's this hormone that does all these things, and all these things interfere with it. It might seem overwhelming. What should I do then? Well, I would like to reframe that into, instead of like all these things that are affecting you, think about all the levers that you can pull. And this is why thinking about calories is just not enough. Honestly, it's not even the first thing that you should be doing. There's so many other pieces that you can address before you even see if you're overeating. Because if you address all those pieces, sometimes the overeating regulates itself. So things like getting morning sunlight instead of looking at a screen, taking sun breaks and going outside during the day, making sure you block blue light at night. And I have another video, I'll leave it linked below, on exactly how to do that to protect that evening leptin sensitivity instead of getting that cortisol rise at night. Working on your nervous system, which is how you handle stress. If you do have some mental emotional stress, whether it's from past trauma or maybe you're in a bad situation right now, your body can better respond to that stress. Yeah, so when it comes to diet, the macros and the nutrient density can be a lot more important because it is, well, first of all, things like protein is more satiating. So you're gonna get a better signal of satiation from that. You wanna make sure that you have all your micronutrients to make your mitochondria work well. And you don't wanna be sending your brain a famine signal. You wanna send it an abundance signal. Now that doesn't mean that you want to overeat, but if you work on all these other pieces, also like your gut health, do you have any digestive symptoms that might need some dietary changes, or even the light changing can even affect that, lowering your inflammation. So if you do all of those things, a lot of the times you will start restoring leptin signaling, and you will naturally start eating less because you will get those satiety signals. You will get leptin to tell the thyroid that it's safe to use the energy. So your basic metabolic rate will go up. So the calories out part of the equation will change in your favor, right? So if you do all these other things, then if you're still not losing weight, you can look at your calories. But a lot of the times things regulate on their own, and you naturally eat enough to be at a healthy weight. So I hope this has helped change a little bit of the perspective on feeling like you're failing because you're trying to fight your own survival biology. Like the body does these things because it's trying to protect you, because it senses danger, and it is trying to prioritize your survival, not your weight loss, not your comfort, not your brain clarity. And I hope that instead of seeing this as something that is external, or maybe something wrong with your body not working properly, understand that your body is working exactly as it should and is responding to the signals in its environment. If you want some help figuring out what the signals are that your body is responding to, I have an incredible free community that I'm linking below, where we talk about all these things: how to properly regulate hormones, lose weight, regulate periods, restore fertility, improve your energy, and actually feel good in your body. So I hope to see you there, and see you in the next one.